Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we are going to be doing a tournament after action report. That's right, it's time for some dispatches from the front lines. And oh boy, do I have a spicy meatball for your viewing pleasure today. I went to an absolute shark tank of a GT, a 2-day tournament, and I took my traditional mechanized guard list. And I don't mean to alarm you, but it went very, very well. This may be a bold claim, but I might have just cracked the guard meta. A hot take indeed. I am going to need to back that up. And so without further ado, let's mount up, roll out, and drive right into this thing.
Attention guardsmen, the Commissar has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
As is tradition, I want to start off with a few quick thank yous. I want to say a thank you to the tournament organisers, the Northern Warlords, for putting on another fantastic event. I've been going to Northern Warlord events for years at this point, and they've always been fantastic. And they've always been very, very cutthroat. The motto of the Northern Warlords Club and their tournaments is, turn up, get smashed, but get better. And let me tell you, this tournament definitely lived up to that hype. So massive shout out to Robbo, Dan, and many others of the Northern Warlords for putting on a great event. I also want to say a massive thank you to the venue Element Games for hosting the event. I've spoken about Element Games many times on this channel, and I love it. I love the venue, I love the staff, I think they do an amazing job. They've got a fully stocked bar, so you can have a few cheeky beverages whilst you're having your games, and they've got a massive shop, so once you've had your event, either you can treat yourself to some Warhammer if you've done well, or you can buy yourself some commiseration Warhammer if things didn't go quite so well. Just overall, a fantastic venue, and definitely one that I recommend. Of course, I want to say a big thank you to all of my opponents as well, because 40k is a social game, and if you don't have good opponents, you can't have a good game, and you can't have a good tournament, and every single one of my opponents was an absolute gent. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a big thank you to all of my teammates, because it was a team tournament. So big shout out to Salty Simon, who was the team captain, and also a shout out to Ben and Sam for being fantastic teammates. But with all of that said, now let's get into the video proper, and we'll start off with the army list overview. As per usual, I have recorded a separate deep dive army list overview video on the channel already, and I'll make sure there's a link to that video down in the description below. That video really gets into the nitty-gritty detail of what was in the army list and all of the thoughts and considerations behind each unit and why they were put into the army. So if you really want that fine detail on why every unit was put in the list, make sure to check it out. But if you're just looking for a quick overview, then this is what I was running. So it was a 2,000 points Imperial Guard army inside a combined arms detachment. At the top, we had two Leman Russ tank commanders. Both were equipped with executioner plasma cannons, a Lascannon on the front, plasma cannon sponsons, a heavy stubber, and a hunter killer missile. And one of the tank commanders had been upgraded with the Grand Strategist Enhancement, so he could do an extra order. I also had a Commissar who was just there to go in strategic reserve every single game and come in and try and score me some of those tricky secondaries like engage north front, behind enemy lines, and establish locus. Rounding out the characters, I had a Cadian Castellan, and he was just there to order the artillery teams. Before we get to the fire support though, we have to cover the infantry corps, because every day in the corps is like a day on the farm. Every meal a banquet, every paycheck a fortune,
every formation a parade. I love the corps!
And today's infantry corps was a mechanized one. I had 5 units of Catachan jungle fighters, each with double flamer and a voxcaster, and they each went inside a Chimera APC. Every single Chimera was equipped the same: double heavy bolter, a heavy stubber, and a hunter killer missile, and of course the Lasgun array and the firing deck. No Tauroxes? That is right. I didn't take Tauroxes because I wasn't taking infantry that needed to get into the opponent's face, jump out, and start blasting. If I'd had Catachan in this list, Tauroxes absolutely would have made it. But I was taking bog standard infantry, and the job of my chimeras and my infantry was basically to give me a huge objective control advantage. Anytime I needed to dump out enough objective control to flip an objective, I had it available in a protected asset that was also pretty fast as well. On top of this, chimeras actually put out a really respectable amount of firepower, and I knew I was going to a tournament where I was going to need every bit of DACA I could get my hands on. From the infantry corps to the armored corps, we had 3 Leman Russ Vanquishers, and they were all equipped with the Ambassador's Choice loadout. That means they had a Vanquisher cannon, a Lascannon, plasma cannon sponsons, a heavy stubber, and a hunter killer missile. None of this triple flamer stuff. None of this scoundrel Russ. This was the elegant weapon of war. This was the Leman Russ Vanquisher. Also, they're actually just really good at 145 points. They're really tough. They have a lot of firepower, and plasma cannons mean that they get the volume of shots they need from blast. A few final bits and bobs. I had a single scout sentinel, which was just there to scout forward and get me things like area denial without having to overexpose. And I also had 2 artillery teams, which are my current favorite artillery in the game, and definitely the one that I would recommend as a go-to for most guard players. You've got that reliable number of shots, they're not too expensive, they're very durable, and they happily sit on your home objective, locking it down. To bring this all together and summarize it, I had 5 Leman Russes, I had 5 chimeras with 5 infantry squads inside, and then I had 1 Commissar, 1 Cadian Castellan, 1 Scout Sentinel, and 2 artillery teams with heavy mortars. So that just about covers the army list, but now let's get into the lay of the land. So this was a 2-day, 5-round GT. It was a WTC tournament, which means that the scoring was slightly different to the usual everyone scores 100 points. If you're ahead by 1 point, you win. Instead, it's done on points differential. What this really means is you have to win your game by at least 5 points if you want to actually get the win. So if, let's say, I've got 70 points and my opponent has got 74 points, under normal GW rules, that would be a loss, but under WTC rules, that would actually be a draw. And the reason it was WTC scoring is it was a teams tournament. So rather than players just being on their own getting paired into other players, what happens is teams of 4 get paired into each other. And then there's a little mini game between each team's captain to try and determine which of their players are going to fight each other. Now, the reason that it was WTC scoring is because it was a team tournament. It was 4-man teams. Now, rather than players getting individually paired up into each other via like BCP or something, instead, the teams get paired into each other, and then each team captain engages in a mini game with each other where they work out which players from their team are going to fight which players on the opposing team. Now, this mini game is a little complicated. There's all sorts of like cards going down and then turning them over. That means that this player's been revealed with this army and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into the details of it. What I will say is that it does have a big influence on what matchup you can get. Sometimes it means you can get a really, really good match if your team captain knows what he's doing. And sometimes it means you're going to get a really bad matchup and you kind of get thrown under the bus. Long story short, there is some real skill and strategy that goes into some team matchings and team pairings. And so I want to say a big shout out to Salty Simon, because he did it for the first time this year and he absolutely smashed it. Honestly, I think he was on it when it came to getting the right matchups, and I have to say I think it really helped me at this event. Now, speaking of teams and other players, how competitive was this event? Woohoo, mama. This was a total Shark Tank. Every single person there had been to at least one of the tournament before, and many of them had been to quite a few tournaments in the past. And I'm not just saying this. There are people in the MG community who have been to the Northern Warlord team tournaments, and they will be able to attest firsthand how spicy some of these lists can be and how good some of the players are. It is actually really nice to go to a Warlords event because you just get to look around at the talent on display, and it's just fantastic. And there was a lot of talent. This was quite a big tournament with 72 players being in attendance over the course of the weekend. Now, we've talked about format, we've talked about pairings, and we've talked about player skill. But what about the terrain? Arguably the most important part of almost any tournament. Well, it was also WTC, which means it is ultra dense. If you've ever played on a WTC board, you will know how bloody tight those boards can be. There are channels of movement where Chimeras and Leman Russes can't get through. There are firing lanes which are incredibly short, and you really do have to get up close and personal. WTC terrain favors assault armies, and I had just brought a massive shooting army to the game. Okay, memeing aside, I knew it was WTC terrain, and I still chose to take this list for a very important reason. I personally think that Mech Guard armies are much better into enemy assault armies than hybrid armies or infantry armies. The big reason is that if an assault army charges into a Chimera, kills the Chimera, my infantry get out and I've still managed to protect my objective control. But if a unit of berserkers, for example, charges into a platoon of infantry, all of those infantry are going to die. Even if those units cost roughly the similar amount, because I can't protect my infantry, they're much more susceptible to assaulting units. So Mech not only gives me more maneuverability, naturally, just because it's a bit faster, but it also helps me insulate against assault armies. Oh, and one last other thing. This tournament was using the new chapter approved mission deck, and it was my first time actually interacting with those missions. Talk about learning on the job. This is one of the reasons why I took the army list that I took, because I wanted something that I was very familiar with, and I've already played on WTC terrain plenty of times, so it just meant that I only had one thing to worry about when I was playing the games, one thing to learn, which was the new missions. But that's enough pre-game preamble, if you will. I know why you guys are really here. Let's get into the games. So, in round 1, I got paired into Kieran and his Imperial Guard. And let me just tell you, this was the perfect way to start the tournament, because I've played Kieran several times before. In fact, this is the 4th time that I have paired into him at a tournament over the last few years. He's actually featured on a few of these after-action reports before. And he has come on leaps and bounds as a player over the last few times that we've played. In fact, every time that we play, he has got closer and closer to beating me. The first time that we played, I managed to get one over him. The second time that we played, I was able to beat him, but it was a bit of a close run thing. And then the last time we played, I only just managed to squeak a victory from him, and I have to admit it was a little bit jammy and I was a little bit lucky. So I was genuinely worried going into this game, because I thought if this trend continues, Kieran is definitely on track to beat me this time. But what was Kieran actually running in his guard army? Well, he had 2 of the Leman Russ Vanquishers, he had 2 Leman Russ battle tanks, every single one of the Leman Russes had a Lascannon and multi-melter sponsons. He also had a Hellhound and 2 Tauroxes with Catachans inside. He then had 2 units of Catachan, and he had 3 big blobs of infantry. 2 of them were Cadians with a Cadian command squad, and one of those Cadian blobs also had Creed in there, and then there was a Krieg blob as well. And quick side note, what's really funny about Kieran's list is it is nearly exactly the list that I was going to take, but I changed my mind at the last minute. I was thinking of going for a hybrid guard list of infantry and tanks. Very, very similar, like 90% similar to what Kieran was running. And at the last moment I went, no, I'm going to take an army that I know like the back of my hand. I've been playing this traditional Mech Guard for probably pretty much on and off since the beginning of 10th edition. But I was curious, I was wondering to myself, how would it have gone if I had taken the Combined Arms hybrid guard army? Well, now I got to see how it would do, because I got to play into it round 1. It's kind of freaky and weird how the universe works sometimes. But superstitious nonsense to one side, the mission for round 1 was taken hold, and the deployment was Tipping Point. Speaking of deployment, towards the bottom I had 3 Chimeras and a tank commander. Just a quick note, if you're wondering how this Chimera ended up here, this is because this picture is taken after my first turn of movement and scouting. So this Chimera wasn't just placed in a bit of a random place way too far forward. Then moving on to my middle, I had another Vanquisher and another Executioner, and I had 2 artillery teams, and I had my Castellan. And then towards the top, I had 2 more Vanquishers, and I had 2 Chimeras, and I had my Sentinel. My overall strategy with this deployment was to enact the Horns of the Buffalo, also known as the double flanky sweep by the School of Simon. Essentially, I wanted to focus on the side objectives whilst just denying the middle objective. If I could dominate on the flanks, I would essentially hold 3 objectives over the course of the game, and Kieran would only be able to get 1 to 2 over each turn. As for Kieran's deployment, he had a Taurox with Catachans in and a unit of Catachan towards the top. In the middle, he had 2 tanks, a Vank and a battle tank, and then his Creed command blob, and he also had his Krieg blob there. And then towards the bottom, he had a really big concentration of forces. He had 2 more tanks, Hellhound, Blob, Catachan, and Scouting Taurox with Catachans inside. With everything deployed, it was time to find out who was going to get the first turn, and I won the roll-off. The reason I'm doing that is because intake and hold going second is so powerful, because you can just get a bonus 15 points at the end of the game by just going, oh, I'll just move out here, here, and here. Going first intake and hold really is a bit of an uphill battle, especially on dense terrain like this. So my first turn was fairly tentative because I didn't want to overexpose myself and I wasn't sure how Kieran was going to play it. So I just scout moved a lot of my Chimeras into staging positions, moved my Vanquishers over to here, which looks very aggressive, but I've measured out that he wouldn't be able to get his tanks over to here to get a line of sight on me, and they couldn't draw a line of sight across here because of these crates. So even though they look exposed, they're actually well staged and well protected. And the only unit that I exposed was this Chimera, which I scout moved and then moved and all that kind of stuff forward so that I could then get engaged on all fronts. But I had my bum near the ruins here so that when the Chimera was inevitably destroyed, the infantry could pour out behind the ruin and stay protected, because I don't want to lose 2 assets. I could have, with the benefit of hindsight, I could have just got the infantry out first, but I kind of wanted to put it here because then it would potentially be a threat, because it could get out onto the objective here, which, if depending on how Kieran moved, and he might not be able to get line of sight onto my guys, that could have meant that I got lots of extra points, lots of primary points at the beginning of the game. Now, Kieran was a little bit more aggressive than I was expecting on his turn 1. He took his unit of Catachan that were up here, moved them out here with a cheeky move, did a few plasma melter shots into the Vanquisher. Didn't do any meaningful damage though. Fortunately, he didn't get the wounds on the Vanks with the melters. And then he charged the Chimera that was here. He thought about doing lots of multi-charging and stuff, but it ended up being a good idea that he didn't, because he only just made his charge into this Chimera here. So he did manage to tie that one up. He then just scooted forward with both of these tanks here and was able to kill my Chimera. Now, he actually killed the Chimera between the Hellhound and the Vanquisher cannon, and his battle tank could draw a line of sight over to here. So I was like, well, not getting the infantry out to that objective then, because they'll all definitely die. So instead, I just got my infantry out back here instead. One very important thing that we realized though, Kieran had definitely made a big boo-boo with his deployment, because he tried to move his tank through this gap and it wasn't wide enough. That is the perils of WTC terrain, which meant that this tank was fine because it would be able to move around here no problem, but this tank was going to be a couple, if not more than that, movement phases away from being able to get around here and get into the fight. So this battle tank actually had a bit of a rubbish game, to be honest. Last but not least, he took his Taurox here and zoomed it forward so that it was in a position to essentially mirror what I'd done here. Either get out into a safe position or get out onto the objective, depending on how my shooting went in my turn. So it comes over to battle round 2. And I noticed something. I noticed that Kieran has staged up a lot of infantry behind these ruins. And I'm like, this motherfucker. He is going to go for the turn 5 big 15. That's what he's going to rely upon. He's just going to basically deny as much scoring from me and then get whatever secondaries he can get and then just go for that big 15. Because last time we played, that almost swung the game for him. So he's kind of like applying the lessons learned. I was like, all right then. If he's going to do that, I can't be timid. I cannot be timid. If I am timid, I will just essentially not score what I need to score, and then he's going to get a big 15 and he's going to win the game on that. So Operation Balls to the Wall was put into effect turn 2. Part 1 of the plan consisted of taking the infantry which had been blown out of the Chimera and putting them on this objective. I did this in a way so that he wouldn't be able to just shoot them off with the firepower from the tanks. He'd have to bring something through here if he wanted to stop me. Now that's really important, because if he doesn't bring something through, I'm going to potentially get big primary on my turn 3. But if he does bring something through, that's one less asset he's got staged. That's one less thing he's got to jump on that objective at the end of the game. As for the Catachan that were up here, I fell back with my Chimera a smidge, and then I shot the crap out of the Catachan with this Chimera here and this Leman Russ back here. As for the units in the middle, the Taurochs, I kill the Taurochs with the Leman Russ Executioner here, and because I've still got this Vanquisher and this Vanquisher and this Vanquisher that could see into the middle, Kieran ends up putting his Catachans here instead of the protect position, which is fine by me because it means he's not going on to the objective. I do manage to kill all but one of them between the Chimera and the 2 artillery teams. I actually rolled totally okay on the artillery teams, but Kieran proceeded to make, I think it was 5... It was something like 5 out of 5 5+ saves on this one man from 2 artillery teams. It was just like, okay, yeah, he's just destined to live. And then I used this, because he deployed his infantry back here, I still had these 2 Vanquishers to go, and I shot his Hellhound that was here and was able to destroy that. Now, I went for that Hellhound because I drew Bring It Down and I hadn't read the card. Like, I was still going off how old Bring It Down worked. So I thought I had to destroy more vehicles. It's like, well, okay, I'll go for the Taurochs and I'll go for the Hellhound. Lesson learned, new Bring It Down is just destroy one vehicle. Doesn't matter what it is, destroy one vehicle, get 4 points. If I'd known that, I may not have overexposed, because I feel like I did overexpose a little bit with both of these Vanks, but it is what it is, and lesson learned. In response to my aggression, Kieran brought his Catachan through here and killed the infantry on this objective. I mean, he had to. He couldn't let me get 5 points there. He also brought this Tauroch over to here and got it onto the middle objective again, just denying it to me. And he then brought his Vanquisher, and Battle Tank out to here, and he actually was able to destroy one of my Leman Russ Vanquishers, equalizing the advantage. It was now 2 Vanks apiece. My turn 3 is fairly straightforward. I just want to keep pushing forward. Now, it might not look like I'm moving that far forward, but you have to be going around a lot of the terrain. I also basically just want to clear anything that comes into my line of sight. So I end up killing the remaining Catachans. There was like 1 bloke left here. There was 10 blokes here. I killed them. I killed the Catachan that had come through and destroyed my infantry squad that had been there. And I also managed to, in the duel of the Vanks, take out an enemy Vanquisher, meaning that the advantage came back to me. It's now 2 Vanks to 1. The only point of note is I do fail to destroy this Tauroch, which then annoyingly ends up getting some revenge on me in Kieran's turn 3. Kieran also has a pretty fast and furious turn 3. He brings one of his Catachan units on from reserve. He had used reinforcements on it during the game, and it came in back here and went after the artillery team on my home objective. This was a really smart play, because if you look, I actually only have 1 thing on it. So if he kills that, I actually lose my home objective, and that's 5 primary points I don't have. Now, he was a little unlucky, but it's also a testament to how durable artillery teams are. It actually survived on 4 wounds. But the Catachan weren't the only infantry making themselves known on this board. A priest came in back here and started doing some chanting and getting some secondary points. And then an infantry wave of Kriegers burst forth from the ruins and started training their melter guns and plasma guns onto my Leman Russ. Between them, the 2 battle tanks and the Vanquisher, and a cheeky tank shock from the Tauroch, I told you it was going to get its revenge on me. This Vanquisher did end up going down. So there's a lot of activity from Kieran, but he only actually ultimately killed 1 Vanquisher this turn. We go into battle round 4, and I launch my secret plan. I launch what I've been building up to since turn 2. Operation Deny the Big 15. I go hyper aggressive with my tanks. I'm talking this Vanquisher goes up to here. This Leman Russ, there was an Executioner here, goes over to here. And I can draw line of sight to this Cadian blob down here. And I can also, of course, draw line of sight to the Krieg blob that is here. And every single gun in my army basically goes into those 2 blobs. And with a bit of supporting fire from one of the artillery teams, we are able to destroy both blobs. And that is huge because now Kieran doesn't have any massive dense OC things that can go on this objective. And it means his blob that's in the middle here really can only get onto this objective as well. I'm able to pick up the Priest and the Catachan with one of the artillery teams, the Castellan, and a bunch of my infantry, which got out of my Chimeras and sort of went this way and got in amongst them, and with the Chimera fire support as well. And with that all done, at the end of round 4, Kieran was basically not in a position to get the Big 15 anymore. So he does his round 4 and he gets what primary he can. He gets what secondaries he can. And then we get to round 5. The TO comes over and says, you've got 5 minutes left. So Kieran and I just say, okay, well, we can both do a very, very quick turn 5. I pick up my primary. I pick up my secondaries. Kieran is only able to get 10 on primary. And so the final result of the game is a very close 72 to Kieran and 76 to me, which under GW points would be a win, but under WTC points is a very hard fought draw. So a massive, massive shout out to Kieran. This game was absolutely back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I think if I hadn't gone for that really big bollocks maneuver and gone for both of those blobs, just taking advantage of the fact that I've got a 36-inch range, so if I'm up here, I can still get range onto the infantry down here. If I hadn't done that, I think he would have won. It may have still ended up as a WTC draw, because if Kieran had got an extra 5 points, then that would have meant he would have been on 77 to 76. But so from a WTC point, it was probably going to be a draw either way. But from a GW score point of view, that would have been enough for him to get a win. So with game 1 in the bag, it was time to go straight into game number 2. And this time I was facing off against Jez and his Sisters of Battle. Jez is a really good mate of mine. We have played against each other for years. And I have to say, when I saw he was running Sisters, I was very surprised. Because Jez's normal modus operandi is, I'm going to take something cornate and I'm going to run at you. And either you survive the pressure and win, or you don't survive the pressure and I win. I mean, for the last few years, I've seen him running around with a Triple Bloodthirster and Scarbrand list, and he loves it. He absolutely loves it. But today, he was running something a little bit different. In his list, he had Morven Val, Saint Celestine, Junith Arutia, and the Demon Fuge. He also had a unit of 10 Battle Sisters with a Melter Gun and a Multi-Melter and the Banner. 2 Immolators with Twin Multi-Melter and Heavy Bolters. Rounding out the list, we had 2 Castigators with Battle Cannons, 2 minimum squads of Arco-Flagellants, a squad of 5 Seraphim with 2 Inferno Pistols, a squad of 3 Paragon Warsuits with Multi-Melter, Grenade Launcher and Paragon War Maces, 10 Zephyrim with the Sacred Banner, another 5 Zephyrim with the Sacred Banner, 5 Retributors with 4 Multi-Melters and an Inferno Pistol, and another 5 Retributors with 4 Multi-Melters and an Inferno Pistol. The mission was Terraform and the deployment was Crucible of Battle. For deployment, Jez went for an Immolator down towards the bottom, and then he concentrated most of his forces in the middle and towards the top, with both Castigators being around there, and then we also had the second Immolator, the Paragons, and we also had a unit of Zephyrim. There were 10 Sisters with Junith that were sat on the home objective. Each Immolator had a squad of the Retributors in it, and everybody else, all of the other flying sisters were in reserve. For my deployment, down towards the bottom, I went for 2 castigators with a Leman Russ tank commander. In the middle, I had another Chimera, 2 Vanquishers, and the Scout Sentinel. On my home objective, I had 2 of the artillery teams, and the Castellan, of course. And then towards the top, I went for my other tank commander. Then I had the Vanquisher and the remaining 2 Chimeras. My plan was very similar to last game. I wanted to focus on the flank objectives, again, embracing the horns of the buffalo. But I had gone for a much more significant presence in the mid. And the reason for this was not because I was really intending to go after the mid at any point, maybe go onto it towards the end if things were going well, but instead I needed to be able to have a rapid reaction force depending on where Jez went. You see, when you're playing an army like Sister Battle, they do have the ability to get very good force concentration. And I know that Jez is looking at that middle objective, but I'm not sure if he's going to break down to the bottom or if he's going to break down to the top for his next objective that he's going to want to take. So by having these forces in the middle here, if Jez starts going down this way, I can bring my tanks down this way. If Jez starts going up that way, I can bring my tanks up that way. Because there's half decent firing lane down here and down here. With everything deployed, it's time to find out who's going to go first. And Jez wins the roll-off, but I get to do my scout moves. And I scout move my Chimeras aggressively on both flanks, just staging up for the objectives. But I also put a Chimera here as bait. And unfortunately for Jez, he takes the bait, and Val and the Castigator come out to go after it. But by popping smoke, and with a bit of bad luck on Jez's side, and a bit of good luck on my side, and with a few things not being in range, that Chimera actually lives and only takes 6 wounds overall. It really wasn't that bad. And I'm just going to tell you, it could not have gone better for me. Getting all of those units exposed and basically not losing anything in return meant that I was in a position to do an incredible amount of damage turn 1. And truth be told, that's exactly what I did. These 3 tanks here, plus this Chimera here, plus this Chimera here, concentrated all of their firepower on Val's unit, and also I had a chance to go after the Castigator as well. Val's unit was knocked down by the Plasma Cutioner here, the Vanquisher here, and these 2 Chimeras. And I even managed to kill Val herself, although she did get back up thanks to a stratagem. Because she got back up at the end of the phase, it meant that I had 1 Vanquisher left over with no other targets except for the Castigator. I rolled the main gun. I got the hit. I got the wound. Jez failed his 6 invulnerable save. I rolled the damage. And I rolled the big 6. In a single shot, my Vanquisher picked up a Castigator. I didn't get all of my luck my way though. My Sentinel and the tanks over here failed to kill this Castigator. I just kept rolling kind of badly, but I wasn't going to complain because by taking the Castigator out here and taking Val's unit out here, this flank was now looking very, very secure. And I was able to use the artillery teams. I didn't put their firepower into Val. I thought I did. But I actually put their firepower into the Arcoflagellants over here and was able to kill them as well, taking another little asset away from the sisters. And as we all know, they are so elite right now, losing 1, 2, 3 assets and having your character knocked down and having another Castigator just smashed, not destroyed, but badly smashed in 1 turn. Well, from that point on, it was an uphill battle for the sisters. Credit to Jez, though, he was not disheartened, and he actually sprung into action in his turn 2, destroying the Chimera down here, and the Chimera here, and the Sentinel here. But those are all screening units, and to do that, he brought out his Retributors here, and his Retributors here, and he also brought down his reserves, but he brought them down in a staging point here. And with Val's unit essentially down and Val exposed, and with now all the Retributors and Immolators also out to play, my turn 2 objectives were very simple. I didn't really care about primary. I didn't really care about secondaries. My objectives were just to remove all of the anti-tank in my opponent's army. And that's what I did. Both units of Retributors went down. Both Immolators went down, and Val also bit the dust, because an Immolator just can't stand up to a Vanquisher and some firepower from Plasma Executioner. Val's already been knocked down once. She ended up getting knocked down again. I think I chucked some grenades at her, and then just some chip damage was able to finish her off. She's a vehicle, so I get lethal hits against her with things like Chimeras. And then this Immolator in... actually, to be fair, I didn't get the Immolator in the middle, but I did get the Retributors, because they were on this terrain here, and I was able to draw line of sight across and just blast them. And so going into round 3, Jez had one Immolator and a badly damaged Castigator for his anti-tank. And then he had a bunch of sisters running around with, well, swords. I mean, he had Celestine as well. But there wasn't enough left on the board. The sisters had just taken too many losses too early on. In one final effort, Jez did throw everything down here onto the bottom flank. And between Celestine, the Demifuge, the Arcoflagellant, and the remaining Immolator, I did end up actually losing one of my Vanquishers, and I lost another Chimera and Infantry Squad, but that was about it. And in my turn 3, I essentially picked up everyone but Celestine down here. All the Zephyrim died, all the Seraphim died, and I was able to finish off the badly wounded Castigator over here with a cheeky flank attack as well from my... It sort of came out here to try and screw me over, but it only had a few wounds left over, so I just stayed in combat with it and then shot it in my turn, lethaled it to death, and that was it. And so end of round 3, Jez has literally got Celestine, a squad of 3 Arcos, the Demifuge, 5 sisters hiding here, and some sisters on its own objective. That's it. It was, for all intents and purposes, over. Over the course of turn 4 and turn 5, the Imperial Guard basically went into mop-up mode. We were able to clear out pretty much everything down here, and we were able to kill Saint Celestine in the middle of the board as well. I think this picture sort of taken part way through turn 4, maybe turn 5, but I still had a bit of firepower left over to kill these guys. End of the day, the only sisters battle that survived the encounter were the 10 hiding on the home objective, and the guards still had 4 out of 5 Leman Russes left alive, and we still had 3 Chimeras left alive as well. It was a little bit of a crushing victory, and even when Jez was able to kill one of my infantry squads on here, I just brought it back on as reinforcements, and we just started scoring loads of secondaries. In fact, speaking of secondaries and primary, I was able to get 90 victory points in this game to Jez's 40, making it a crushing victory and a 20-0 under WTC. Looking back on this game now, this matchup I think was just terrible for the sisters. Frankly, they just did not have enough anti-tank. And what anti-tank they did have was strength 9. And even with miracle dice, there's only so much you can do when you're fishing for 5s to try and wound. And against the Leman Russ in cover, I get a 5-up save. And so it's always difficult when you're struggling to get those 5s, and then occasionally those 5-up saves spike on the other side. I just think sisters are way too elite at the moment. I know that the sister battle community earlier in 10th edition were like, we don't want to be a horde army. We don't want to be somewhere between guard and space marines. But I think the truth of the matter is that some armies are just more expensive to collect than others. I think that is the case. I mean, guard is a horde army, and I think at the end of the day, if you are as expensive as marines but only have half the number of wounds, less toughness, and you only have like a 3-up save, I think that's going to go badly no matter what. If I was to rewrite sisters at this point, and I'm not a sisters player, so I fully accept I could be pissing sister players off here, and I do apologize for that, and I would love to get some feedback on my thoughts here. But if I was to change sisters, I would go back to them being a relatively numerous army somewhere between the guard and somewhere between space marines. I think that's what they need to be. I remember playing these guys back in 9th edition, and it felt like wave after wave of sisters would coming forward, and it actually almost felt like a bit, not quite, but a bit of a battle of attrition, especially if they were taking like mostly infantry armies without too much vehicles. But at the moment, it just feels like you just can't get enough in a Sister's army. And in a game where trading is very important, attrition is very important, having enough pieces to do action is very important. Sisters just feel like they are on the shitty end of the stick right now. But that is enough of contemplating the follies of mankind. Now let us go into game 3. And this time I was going to be taking on a really spicy list, a proper stat check. Necrons. So round 3, I paired into Sophie with her Necrons, and it was a hypercrypt list that essentially consisted of 6 unkillable units. There were 2 Transcendent Catan, there was the Nightbringer, the Shard of the Void Dragon, and everyone knows Catans are very, very tough. They're like toughness 11, 4 invulnerable save, half damage, and a 5-up feel no pain. And then you had, on top of that, 2 units of Wraiths. Big bricks of 6 Wraiths, each one led by a Cryptek. So they've also got a 4+ invulnerable save, and also they've got a 5-up feel no pain. Now that was pretty much the entire list. After that, there was a unit of Flayed Ones, a single Destroyer, and Imhotep the Stormlord. And to make matters worse, it was Purge the Foe for the mission. Kill 1 or kill more against an unkillable list, and hold 1 or hold more against Wraiths which are actually relatively OC dense. This, on paper, looked like a very, very tough matchup. I thought I was boned. Deployment was Crucible of Battle, and I thought that what had worked last game should work again this game. Why deviate from the formula? The double flanky sweep, the Horns of the Buffalo, you're going to keep hearing me say it, was once again enacted. 2 Chimeras and a Leman Russ on the flank. We had a Chimera and then 2 Leman Russ in the middle. This Leman Russ down here is actually, I just plonked it down, but I didn't actually deploy it there. So it was actually meant to be up here instead. And then we had 2 Leman Russes and 2 Chimeras on this flank. Pretty much an identical deployment to last time, maybe just slightly different in 1 or 2 places. For the Necrons, we had 2 Catan down here. We had a Brick of Wraiths and the Nightbringer here. And then we had a Catan and also a Brick of Wraiths behind this ruin here. And Imhotep just went on the back objective. Flayed Ones infiltrated to here, and the Destroyer went in Deep Strike Reserve. Now, there was only one thing that could make this game worse, and that is if I won the dice roll to see who goes first. Because if I win the dice roll to go first, it means that the Hypercrypt Necrons can start teleporting all over the place in their turn 1. And you guys know, I'm obviously going to have the uphill battle, right? Obviously. Well, it turns out that Skinwalker Mordian decided to be in command this time, and I actually went second. Oh, that was a big, big deal. And, not to give too much away, but a little bit of an omen for how the game was going to go. So before the Necrons got their turn, I did have to do my scouting moves. And once again, I scouted with a Chimera up this flank. I had a Chimera staged here. I had a bait Chimera go out here. And then I started putting pressure on these objectives as well. Then it came over to the Necron turn. They moved the Wraiths up to this objective here. And then they staged the Wraiths up behind this wall here. And they brought the Nightbringer out to go after the Chimera down here. They also just left the Catan here, and I believe they did end up picking both of those up at the end of my turn 1. Damage from the Necrons was pretty minimal turn 1. They went after the Chimera with the Nightbringer, but I popped smoke, and that really did help because I wasn't on an objective, so the Nightbringer was hitting on 3s. Inevitably, it rolled a 2 with one of its shots, didn't quite get the wounds that it wanted, and the Chimera actually survived relatively unscathed. I mean, it might have taken a bit of damage, but nothing that was to worry about. It then came over to guard turn 1. Now, in the past, when I have played armies like this, which are very intimidating, I have been very cautious. I've been somewhat timid, and you can even accuse me of almost throwing the game away before it began, because like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do to beat it, kind of thing. But over the last couple of years, I have played into Necrons so many times. I once went to an RTT, which had 40 people at it, and faced Necrons 3 games in a row. True story. There's an after-action report out there about it. So I knew in this situation that if I was timid, what was going to happen is the Necrons were going to start boxing me into my deployment zone, and they would actually end up just dominating on all the primary because they'd be killing more than me, and then they'd probably end up holding more than me as well. So what I needed to do was be aggressive. This was a time for boldness, and fortune supposedly favors the bold. I took my Chimera that was here and put it onto the objective. I took both Chimeras that were here and pushed them very aggressively forward, and actually ended up charging the Wraiths, because one thing that I have learned is that Wraiths are actually really bad at anti-tank. They are. They hit on like 4s and they wound on like 5s. They're only AP -1. And many times I've been able to tie Wraiths up with Chimeras. So I thought, you know what, we'll chuck 2 Chimeras into them. No dramas whatsoever. That'll tie the Wraiths up. And I actually was able to have more OC on that objective than them as well. I also brought my Chimera here. I pushed a Sentinel into the middle as well. That was mostly just for a bit of bait and also to go after a bit of an objective. I had established Locus. And then I concentrated. You see it again. I concentrated my 3 tanks. And I went after the Nightbringer. And I was able to bring him down to 2 wounds. 2 wounds on the Nightbringer. He wasn't quite dead. Between the tanks here, and then I had a Chimera that fired everything. I was like, does anybody have any more missiles? Nope. All Hunter Killers have been fired. All Heavy Bolters fired. All Vanks. All Plaz. All Las. All Stubbers. There was only one thing for it. Tank shock. I flew my Chimera into the Nightbringer. I was able to do 3 wounds to him. 3 mortal wounds from the tank shock. It had 2 wounds left and a fight feel no pain. Statistically, it should go down. And statistics favored me this time. And the Nightbringer was killed. And to add insult to injury, both of my artillery teams went after the flayed ones that were here and were able to kill them as well. Now, you can't get kill more turn 1 in Purge. So maybe I should have played it a bit more carefully. But you have to understand, the flayed ones died first, and then there was the opportunity to go after the Nightbringer. And I thought, well, I don't want to, like, I thought to myself, oh, should I leave him on a couple of wounds and then, like, try and get him next turn? But I was like, no. Kill the assets. There's only a very limited number of units in this army. The Nightbringer will reanimate. Just kill it. And so, Big Nige went down turn 1. And one of the unkillable Necron units suddenly felt a very human chill go down its spine. The Necrons responded to the death of one of their false gods with great haste and furious anger. They easily mopped up the Chimera and the infantry squad in the center, and they were also able to destroy the Scout Sentinel here. The Wraiths poured through the center like something out of a nightmare and were able to tag the Chimera here. I'd been foolish and left it too close to the walls. They were able to fight me through the wall, so they destroyed the Sentinel and then they tagged the Chimera. But I wasn't so bothered about that because, I mean, who's really tying up who in that scenario is really the big question. Because as we can see from the top flank here, Necrons didn't destroy the Chimera. Wraiths really struggle with dealing with armor. If you ever face into unkillable Necron bricks, one of the best things you can do is just tie them up with metal boxes and play bumper cars. Going into my turn 2, and my goal was just to keep removing whatever assets that I could. They've got so few units in their army. Every single one that I can go after is going to make it much hard for them to do the secondary game. And the asset that I had my sights on this turn was the Transcendent Catachan that was in the middle of the board. I pushed forward with these Russes here. I poked this Chimera out round here. And I also, even though it was in combat, fired from this Chimera down into the Catachan. And even though I didn't have the Hunter Killers from the Leman Russ this time, I did have the Hunter Killers from this Chimera and this Chimera. And thanks to some pretty opportunistic spiking on the lethal hits, we were able to take down another Catachan. Scratch 2 flat top. Now, it was at this point that the game really started getting very close and really started heating up. So I didn't take as many pictures as I would have liked. So this picture here shows the state of the game at the end of round 4. So I'll take you through what happened turn 3 and turn 4 at the same time. I'm not going to mince my words, guys. Turn 3 and turn 4 were absolutely abysmal for my opponent. It was a combination of two things. Firstly, over the course of those 2 turns, the remaining small secondary action monkey units went down. Destroyer came down here and got a lot of points, but then died because it's just a lone destroyer. And then Imhotep came out here to go after my guardsman and hold on to the objective, but didn't do very well with his flamer. And then in return, the guardsman threw grenades at him, shot him, got him down to 1 wound, and then charged him and killed him in combat, even though he's got like a 2-up save, because +1 to wound is nice. So with those 2 units gone down, it was like, oh, well, what do the Necrons actually have? 2 units of Wraiths and 2 Catachan. That was it. And the 2 units of Wraiths were tied up in combat, so they can't do any secondaries turn 4. And the 2 Catachan are also essentially tied up in combat or not in a position to do the secondary objectives that came up. So with the Necron secondary game just completely bottoming out, it was then compounded with the fact that Sophie had 2 turns of the coldest dice I have seen. Just couldn't make anything happen. Just could not make anything happen. And in return, the guard capitalized on this. And not only did we remove Imhotep, not only did we remove the destroyer, we also got another one of the Catachan. And even though the Wraiths around sort of turn 4 were able to chew through the Chimeras and then the infantry that got out, all I did is then just yeet a Leman Russ in. And then yeet a Leman Russ in down here. And it's like, yeah, that was it. Turn 4, just tagging both of these with Leman Russes was just the end of the game. Because the entire game, my opponent has basically not been able to hypercrypt. They've like teleported a Void Dragon a bit and a Transcendent Katana a bit, but everything else has just been in engagement range the entire time. And so going into turn 5, with me going second, all the Necron units essentially tied up. It goes over to my turn 5, and I just fall back from everything, go on all the objectives that I want. And even though I don't kill a unit, I'm able to hold more, and I've got units all over the board. Look at the board control. I've got units everywhere. Any secondary that comes up, I can achieve it. To give you an idea of truly how cold the dice were, in one of the turns I was able to get kill more because my opponent just didn't kill anything, and I think I was able to kill, I think it was Imhotep, and that got me kill more. It was something mad like that. It was either that or when I got the Catachan. But in one of the turns, I managed to get Killmore off an army that only had about 4 units left on the board. And so with the Emperor favouring our dice rolls, the Star Gods abandoning those of the Necrons, and with board control firmly within the Imperium's grasp, the game ended 93 to the Guard and 72 to the Necrons. And here is a picture of the end state of the board. You see there's 1 unit of Necron Wraiths here, battered unit of Wraiths here. I even started killing most of the Wraiths, and a single Void Dragon. And I've still got 1, 2, 3. I think I've got all my Leman Russes. Yeah, all my Russes are alive, and I've only lost Chimeras and infantry basically. Looking back on this game, what I thought was a really, really uphill battle for me was actually a really difficult battle for my opponent. That was because I had lethals and they didn't have that much damage output, and they just didn't have enough anti-tank. I thought I was getting stat checked, but it turned out I was the stat checker, not the stat checkee. So at the end of day 1, we had gone undefeated. In terms of GW score, we had actually won all of our games. In terms of WTC, we had a draw and 2 big victories. But now it was time for day 2, and things were going to get tougher. And it started off real spicy when I paired into John and his Drukhari. Now, John is someone who I've also played before in the past. In fact, everyone that I've played at this tournament, I've either played them before or I've seen them across the tournament hall before. No one was inexperienced. Everyone knew what they were doing. And John is a fiend. He's going to watch us, I know. And John, you're an absolute fiend, mate. And I love it. The last few times that we've played, it's been really close. I've beaten John once or twice. He's beaten me once or twice. But normally he is running chaos. But he's decided to throw off the shackles of the chaotic gods and instead embrace the party lifestyle and get on the Dark Elder. And I knew it was going to be a tough game because John is a very, very good player. But I also knew it was going to be a tough game because he had 20-0'd every opponent on day one. That means he had got like 100 points and they had got less than 50 every game. Wild. Absolutely wild. Do not underestimate the Drukhari. They'll get you. They'll get you if you're not careful. And so going into this game, I had just one thing in my head. They destroy entire armies, and we fall back. They enslave entire worlds, and we fall back. The line must be drawn here, no further. And the Emperor's true finest will make them pay for what they've done. Let's go through John's list. He had an Archon, Drazar, Lilith Hesperax, Urian Rakart, 10 Kabalites, a unit of Rax, a unit of 10 Witches, a Raider, 1, 2, 3, 4 Venoms, a single Kronos, 2 units of Incubi, 2 units of Mandrakes, 2 Ravagers, 2 units of Reaver Jetbikes, and 3 units of Talos. 2 of them had 2 Talos in each, and the last unit had a single Talos in it. The mission was hidden supplies, meaning there were 6 objectives on the board, and the deployment was search and destroy. For the Dark Elder deployment, they had on the right flank 2 Venoms, one with Incubi, one with Warriors in. Then they had a Talos and a unit of Bikes and Mandrakes infiltrating towards the middle. Over on the left-hand side, they had a unit of Mandrakes infiltrating into the middle, and they had a unit of Reaver Jetbikes. And then in the center, there was a big old blob of Talos and a Kronos. There was also the Raider with Lilith in, and another Venom with the Rax in, and with Rakheart in it as well. Just a cheeky unit of 5 Kabalites holding the home objective. And then in reserve, we had Drazar and his Venom, and then we had the 2 Ravagers. I should mention also that my opponent's detachment was the Reaper's Wager. As for my own deployment, if you guessed the Horns of the Buffalo, if you guessed the double flanky sweep, you would be right. It's worked 3 games in a row. Why would I mix it up now? So on one flank, we had 2 Chimeras, a Vanquisher, and a Leman Russ Executioner. In the middle, I had my 2 artillery teams and a Vanquisher and a Scout Sentinel. And then towards the top flank, I suppose the left-hand flank, there were the remaining Chimeras, and we had 2 more tanks, a Executioner and a Vanquisher. The idea was that I was going to push basically 2 Chimeras and 2 tanks down each flank, and then have a Chimera, a Sentinel, and a Vanquisher in the center, just to keep my opponent honest. Because I don't want to completely abandon the center, because then he'll just come streaming through it, because Drukhari is quite fast. So I need to have things nearby that can both go left or right if I need support on either flank, or just essentially threaten the mid. Rolling off for first turn, and Skinwalker Mordian has been in force this event. I went second game 2. I went second game 3. And guess what? I went second game 4 as well. Going second is super duper powerful in 10th edition. And I feel it's really powerful in WTC because of how the terrain and the scoring works as well. Turn 1 for the Dark Elder was super duper quick, which is appropriate for their faction because they are meant to be fast. Essentially, 1 unit of Mandrake strung out across both of these objectives, and the Bikes came up here. A unit of Mandrake sat on this objective, and a unit of Bikes zoomed over here towards this objective. The Talos staged up here, and the Venoms staged up here. And that was it. My opponent didn't move with these Talos because he wanted to see where I was going to go first. Handing over to guard turn 1, I had a very simple strategy in mind. And it's one that I often use against Dark Eldar because I've played them a few times. Anytime you can take an asset away from them, you have to do it. Even if it means slightly overexposing yourself, you have to do it. Because the problem is that they have so many little shit muncher units that what they do is they distract you with the big scary things, and then all the little things are running around, zooming, doing objectives, and you get to the end of the game and you feel like you've killed loads of them, but they've got like 100 points. But if you can kill all the zoomy shit munchers, if you can kill all the little scraplet units, then suddenly it becomes a lot harder for them to do their speedy maneuvers and tricks. Also, demech them. Anytime you can take a dedicated transport off them, take that transport off them as well. It's the key to their speed. So with that play in mind, I moved one of my chimeras over to here, just sat on this objective. It was nicely hidden from any sort of Dark Elder fire. And then I moved the chimera over here and I was able to kill the mandrakes. And then artillery teamed the unit of bikes here and killed them. And then these two vehicles pushed up here and were able to kill the bikes that were behind here. The chimera got the angle because it had scout and move. And then I actually moved the Vanquisher. It was a bit of a risk because I was only going to be hitting on 4s, but I figured between a Chimera and a Vanquisher, I should be able to get one of your bikes, and I was able to. But I had brought a lot out, and so Dark Eldar decided to counterpunch. They brought the Ravagers down here, and they also started bringing forward some pretty nasty assets as well. They were able to destroy the Chimera here, but didn't manage to destroy the infantry squad. And they actually struggled to kill a Chimera with 2 Ravagers. Pop and Smoke is a hell of a drug. But the big thing that really, really swung the game in my favor on turn 2 was this Talos. It failed to kill the Sentinel, and it failed like a 6-inch charge with a reroll. Just completely failed it. And by failing that charge, it meant that I was able to hold more objectives than my opponent, and on turn 2 I got 15 primary points. Now the Dark Eldar also destroyed the Chimera that was on this objective here. The Ravagers couldn't do it alone, but they were able to do it with a bit of support from I think it was the Venom that actually ended up finishing it off, and the Racks finishing it off. And then what I did is essentially just get my infantry out off the objective, because I was like, hey, if you want to charge those Racks and kill a squad of infantry, that's fine, but I have an asset here that's just going to counterpunch and take that away from you. So if I deploy off the objective, I'm not holding it, so there's no real incentive for you to do the charge, and it means that you can get back into your Venom if you don't do it. So essentially, John had a big think, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to get back in my Venom. It's really interesting how the Venom just lets you jump in and out of it. It's very tricky. That's, again, where you have to deal with any transports that they have, because otherwise you're like, it's like playing whack-a-mole against them. So like I said, I do get 15 points in primary at the beginning of my turn 2, and then I stick to my strategy. I kill all of the Venoms, apart from Jazar's, which is off the board. 1, 2, 3 Venoms go down. I don't quite have the firepower to kill the occupants. I do try, but I get a bit unlucky with my artillery teams, and my opponent gets a little lucky with the save, so I don't quite manage that. But I do kill an incubi here, an incubi there. I do kill a warrior here, a warrior there, and most importantly, I manage to kill all the Racks back here, and I take out 3 Venoms, and I even manage to damage one of the Ravagers. So I don't like kill loads of expensive stuff, but if you look at the state of the Dark Eldar army going into turn 3, they've got 1 dedicated transport, which admittedly does rapid ingress turn 2, but they've got basically 2 transports of like 5 left. They've got no jet bikes left, and they're losing all these little small 5-man squads. But the Drukhari may have taken a beating, but they certainly were not out of this game. Turn 3, and they punch hard. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was coming. Every time you think you've got the Dark Eldar on the ropes, they always manage to find a way to get back into the game. I lose the infantry squad down here. I lose the Vanquisher to Drazar's unit. And I also lose the Sentinel in the middle here. And I start taking just... The right flank just collapses. Turn 3 for the Dark Elder sees the Imperial Guard right flank collapse. The one saving grace is both Ravagers went after the Leman Russ down here and didn't kill it, which is big because then it was in a position to shoot back in my turn 3. And that is exactly what I do. Additional armoured assets emerge out from their staging points, and whilst the right flank is giving its life dearly, the left flank and the centre comes firmly under control of the guard. I am able to take out the remaining Venom, and I'm able to whittle down Drazar's squad to just himself and a single Incubi, and a unit of guardsmen come on here and are able to start working on the Dark Elder holding this objective as well. We also push forward and we're able to kill one of the Ravagers and heavily damage another, and we take out Urian Ratkar, who'd gone down, and then he got back up again. Then I took him down again in a subsequent turn, and I move block the Talos, which are starting to get into the game. Both armies are absolutely trading body blows, but by the end of turn 4, by the end of battle round 4, the Guard managed to get the game in the bag. You see, what happens is they managed to destroy the Vanquisher here, but that was about it. That's all that they really did. And my turn 4, I take out this Ravager here, and I sweep all of this stuff away. And so the only things the Dark Elder have left is Talos, and Lilith. And for an army that really, really needs to have good board control, they're essentially locked into the middle of the board. The double flanky sweep. The Horns of the Buffalo had once again prevailed. We have a very quick round 5, which essentially sees Lilith's squad jump out here, destroy the Chimera, but in return get absolutely hosed down by the occupants that got out and the guys that were in this Chimera. And then the plasma tank comes around, destroys a raider. The last Ravager goes down to the tanks on this side. And so end state of the board is essentially there's just 4 Talos just floating around. And I think some Mandrakes as well. And that's it. And so at the end of game 4, the Guard had managed to deliver a crushing victory to the Dark Elder. It was surprising how big the difference in the score was, but I managed to get 100 points and John got 43. And that was including 3 challenger cards as well. It basically came down to primary. There were a couple of turns when I actually got max on primary, and then I went second, so I was able to get max on primary again, and I just kept denying him those primary points. Dark Elder's main trick is having lots of little shitty units, but if I'm going to be honest, trying to fight Guard in that manner is very, very difficult. We've always got an extra ship muncher unit than you, and you've got a Venom and we've got a Chimera. I think it is a tough matchup for the Dark Elder at the best of times. And I think the only things that could have made a big difference here is if John had been much more aggressive with his Talos. He even said at the end of the game he was too passive with them. He was just too worried about me killing them. But at the end of the day, they didn't get into the fight. And so I was kind of able to defeat the army in detail. And the other thing is that scrap firepower really screws over Dark Elder. Like, most of the time, my stubbers don't do anything. In this game, I take my stubbers into account and I take them seriously because on a Leman Russ, they're going to be hitting on 3s, winning on 3s. For those of you that are curious, John went on to 20-0 his final opponent. So he got 4 20-0s, and the only game he lost was a 20-0 to his Imperial Guard. But there was no time for celebration. No time to mourn and respect the honored dead. There was only time for more war, and for the final big battle, the final big push. It was time for Game 5. And for the climax of the entire tournament, I was going to be taking on Craig and his Tyranids.
We are going in with the first wave. Means more bugs for us to kill. You smash the entire area. You kill anything that has more than 2 legs. You get me?
We get you, sir! What a perfect end to the tournament. One of the most iconic matchups of the whole of Warhammer 40k. And not only was Craig bringing the bug, but he was taking me on at my own game, and he had brought Monster Mash. Now, it wasn't in Crusher Stampede, it was an invasion fleet, but his army was the Swarm Lord, 2 units of 10 Hormagaunts, a Biovore, an Exocrine, an Exocrine, an Exocrine, a Lictor, a Lictor, a Lictor, a Maleceptor, a Maleceptor, Norn Emissary, Tyrannofex, and Tyrannofex. And both Fexes had Rupture Cannons. And the mission for this ultimate showdown of Ultimate Destiny was Linchpin, and deployment was Search and Destroy. NID deployment consisted of a Maleceptor, an Exocrine, and the Norn Emissary going on the right flank. And then towards the mid, we had another Maleceptor and the Tyrannofex. Sitting on the home objective and sort of around the backfield, we had both units of Hormagaunts, the Swarmlord, and the Biovore. And then over towards the left, we had 2 Exocrines and the second Tyrannofex. And for the guard deployment, do I really need to say it? Well, for the sake of completeness, I suppose I should. 2 Chimeras down on the right flank, supported by a Vanquisher and a Leman Russ Executioner. In the middle, we had both of the artillery teams and the Castellan, and we had a Vanquisher there as well to cover the firing lane. Also, we had a Chimera that was towards the forward mid, and then over on the left-hand flank, we had 2 more tanks and 2 more Chimeras. Scout Sentinel was bumming around the mid as well. We had 2 armoured thrusts on each flank. We had enough in the middle to keep them honest, and we were going to conduct, for the 5th time this weekend, the Horns of the Buffalo, the double flanky sweep. Hey, what can I say? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. With everything deployed, it was time to see who was going to get the first turn, and Skinwalker Mordian, he'd done enough this weekend. He'd allowed me to go second 3 games in a row. So I started the tournament by going first, and I was going to end the tournament by going first as well. Turn 1 for me was very quick and very simple. Chimera stages itself here. Another one pushes very aggressively down this flank. I move it. I don't advance it, but I then jump the infantry squad out, who proceed to throw grenades and then flame the crap out of a Lictor that had infiltrated down here. I also make sure that I have my tanks nicely staged up here. This one is in a position where it can break to the mid if it needs to. This one is here where it could go and start doing damage over here. I don't want to have anything in this pocket here because there's a firing lane right across, which would be bad for me to get hit by Exocrines and Tyrannofexes. I stay relatively still with the stuff in the mid, but I do push forward with a Chimera, both Chimeras on the left-hand flank and with the tanks as well. You can see I'm kind of ballsy, kind of aggressive with it. I've got Chimeras, I'm in the mid part of the board with everything in my turn 1 pretty much, but the firing lanes are kind of weird on this one. Like, this Tyrannofex here cannot see this Chimera. This Exocrine here doesn't quite have the movement, with the fact it's got a pivot and everything, to be able to come across and see this Chimera. And because Tyrannofexes and Exocrines only move like 8 or 9 inches, they can't even move far enough forward to get in the terrain to then see past this piece of terrain here and then get into this Chimera. So it looks really aggressive and I'm pushing really far forward, but actually there's basically no firing angles for the Tyranids on turn 1. And I realized this very quickly, and I realized I needed to take advantage of that because these Nids probably outshoot me. Craig went for lethal hits, of course he did, so we're both lethaling, but he has got 2 Tyrannofexes, which probably beat my Vanks because he can blank and I can't. And he's got 3 Exocrines, and he's got 2 Maleceptors. He's got 7 big damage, and he's got a Norn, to be fair. So he's got like 8 big damage dealers to my 5. My advantage in this game is dedicated transports and OC. And I need to be focusing on that and just doing what I can on the damage output front. Turn 1 for the Tyranids is unbelievably fast. The Norn Emissary moves on to this objective, which was the super objective that made it go ape with like 15 OC and feel no pain and everything. And the Maleceptor moved on this objective. Everything else just sort of plodded forward a bit. There wasn't much more that they could do, but hey, they did hold 2 objectives. Now, I must apologise because I was a little tired at this point in the tournament and my picture taking was a bit rubbish. So what you see here is actually the end of turn 3, not battle round 2. But I'll take you through what happened on both of those battle rounds. So in my turn 2, I took the Chimera that was here and pushed it up to try and move block the Tyrannofex and the Exocrine. And I was like, oh, I don't know whether I should advance it or not to properly move block it, because I don't want Craig to get hold in this terrain piece, stick his gun around the side, then start seeing everything. And then Craig just sort of, he must have just been thinking out loud. He was like, well, you could charge me. And I was like, oh my God. I went, Craig, you shouldn't have said that. He went, oh no, I shouldn't have done it. I said, I'm sorry, man. I hadn't even thought about charging. I'm definitely going to charge you. You do like nothing in combat. He was like, oh. He went, God damn it. I was like, I'm sorry, Craig. I've got to do it. So I charged in, and I was actually able to charge both the Tyrannofex and the Exocrine, essentially move blocking them and taking them out of this flank for an entire turn. Either Craig has to fall back, or he has to try, which will lose him movement, which is then means he's going to take another turn to get through the terrain, or he has to try and stay in and shoot me, which either way, he's then not getting through terrain. So this essentially just locks down this objective, because what I do is I get another Chimera and put it just here, and then I have a tank ready here, tank ready here. So no matter what happens, I'm just ready to basically hold this objective and just keep flinging tanks into the breach. I also take a unit of infantry that were in this Chimera, and I just put enough of them on the objective here so that I stop the Maleceptor from scoring it, but I string the rest back so they're in cover and near to the Chimera so they can get inside it. I also moved the unit of infantry that I'd got out of the Chimera, and I moved them onto the objective here because I need to out-OC the Norn. Speaking of the right flank, it was Vankin time. Between the Sentinel and the Leman Vanquisher, I'm able to kill my first big bug, and I take out the Exocrine. It does take a lot of firepower because it does have a fight feel no pain, but when you slip that sweet, sweet Vank round through, there's only so much that can do for you. The turn in response was swift and deadly. Hormagaunts came boiling out of this ruin, jumped on my guardsmen, and killed 8 of them. Hormagaunts came boiling out of this ruin and jumped on the guardsmen and rolled like absolute hot dog shit. I mean, I think they killed 6. They might have only killed 4, actually. They didn't kill very many. And so the guardsmen were like, oh, okay, well, we somehow survived like 30 Hormagaunt attacks. Crazy. They were not in Synapse range, though. That was the biggie. So maybe that was what made a big difference. But yeah, Hormagaunts not killing 10 guardsmen. I was surprised by that. And then the big one, round 2, was the Tyrannofex shot point blank into the Chimera. It's AP -4, but I was technically in cover. You still get cover when you're in shooting, even if you're in engagement range. It's only melee where you don't get cover. And I had to roll a 6-up save, and I rolled it. So the Chimera survived, meaning that it was going to tie those 2 big bugs up for another turn. Craig took the risk. He took the risk. I think he should have fallen back an inch and then shot me the X-Screen and just killed the Chimera. But he took the risk, didn't fall back, and sadly, it bit him in the ass. Going through battle round 3, the Chimera here just stayed in combat on my turn, and then it finally died in Craig's turn 3, but then the infantry that were inside just spilled out, so the roadblock was still there. And then in the middle, the 2 Flamer Bros that had survived here, or whatever's left from the squad here, jumped back inside this Chimera, and then these 2 units just blew away the Hormagaunts. And then on the bottom down here, my badly damaged Vanquisher, because it had taken a couple of shots from a Tyrannofex, it stays still, even though I know it's going to die. The Norn's going to come and get it now. It stays still, and it goes after the Maleceptor. And what actually happens is I try and kill both Maleceptors, but they're so tough. They're so tough. Those 4+ vulnerable saves are wild. And so this Vanquisher here and this Vanquisher here go after this Maleceptor, but with its 5-up feel no pain, it just tanks it. I don't even know how much damage I do. Not a lot. 5 feel no pain on this one and the 4-pin Vun save. Yeah, they're so tough, these things. Respect the brain bug, guys. If you come across these things, don't underestimate them. Respect the brain bug. And then I had the Chimera here and the Leman Russ Executioner here pour fire into this Maleceptor, and then had a unit of infantry with this Chimera jump out and then charge it to basically take away this objective from the bugs, because I knew the Maleceptor didn't have enough attacks to kill everyone in the 10-man squad, and so I would have enough objective control to stop Craig from getting the bonus points here. But essentially, if you look at the state of the board, end of round 3, I hold one objective in No Man's Land. Craig holds one objective in No Man's Land. And we're constantly just battering each other over this middle one. For Tyranid turn 3, like I said, they kill the Chimera over here. They do end up killing the Vanquisher down here. And they sweep away the rest of the Guardsmen here. But one very, very, very big, very, very important thing that happened turn 3 is I finally killed the Biovore. So you might be wondering, what have my artillery teams been doing this entire time? Well, they've been trying to kill a Biovore. Craig's been getting a bit lucky on his saves, but he only had one unit sat on that home objective. So I was like, if I can kill it, that will completely screw up his linchpin. And finally, on turn 3, almost, I would say, at the worst possible time for Craig, because he's just started committing loads to the mid. I kill it, and now he's got the hard decision of, does he go back or does he push forward? But then we get to battle rounds 4 and 5. So this is the picture of the battlefield at the end of my turn 5. We still had Craig's turn 5 to go. So in my turn 4, I get the Guardsman unit that was here and I charge them into the Tyrannofex and the Exocrine, because he killed the Chimera in his turn 3, but there was still a unit of Guardsmen in there. So the Guardsmen then go in and just tie them up, and it's just an absolute nightmare for Craig. He does manage to kill them between my turn 4 combat and his turn 4 combat, but then on my turn 5, do you know what I do? I just take the Chimera that was here, dump the infantry out, move the Chimera forward, and then tie the 2 units up again. 2 Chimeras and 1 squad of infantry tied up at a Tyrannofex and an Exocrine the entire game. In the middle, I do actually start doing damage on my turn 4 and turn 5. Turn 4, I'm able to kill the Maliceptor here. Now, fair play, it did survive a long time, but it had been basically getting shot at by a Vanquisher tank every turn for the last couple of turns. So it finally went down on turn 4, but it went down to 1 Vanquisher. I had a second Vanquisher which actually was able to see the Swarm Lord, and I actually managed to pick him up. A single Vanquisher round goes through, no feel, no pain, and you know what? It's Vankin time, baby, and I smashed it. Okay, in all honesty, I did shoot all the other guns first, and the Swarm Lord had like 8 wounds left. But I still rolled a 2 or higher on the Vank damage to kill it, so I'm taking it. On this flank, I finally bring down the final Maliceptor. It was really interesting. I went from like killing nothing out of the Tyranid army all game, and then turns 4 and 5, I end up picking up both Maliceptors, and I pick up the Swarm Lord, and I pick up this Exocrine as well. Yeah, this plasma tank here, just concentrate fire on the Exocrine, just send it back into the abyss from where it came. That all happened on my turn 4, turn 5, and it really, between all those bugs going down and these big bugs up here getting tied up, the only real assets that Craig had going into sort of his turn 4 and his turn 5 was this Tyrannofex and this Norn Emissary, and it was really weird. It was like nothing was happening all game. I was doing no damage. And then damage. And it was like boom, boom. And the wind got completely knocked out the sails of the Nid army. And turn 5 ended up just being, yeah, a bit of a quick one for the Nids. As you can see, final positioning. You got Tyrannofex sat on this objective. Norn comes over here, batters his tank, holds this objective. And that was basically it. And the end state of the board, both armies were really heavily damaged. If you actually look, I have lost every single Chimera, and I have 3 Russes left and 2 squads of infantry, because the squad of infantry back here, which popped out after the Chimera died, and a squad of infantry here. I've lost 2 Russes, I've lost my Sentinel, I've lost every Chimera, I've lost 60% of my infantry. But the Tyranid army has lost 4 or 5 of its big bugs. And it's basically just got a bunch of, like 1 unit of Hormogaunts running around. Both sides absolutely knocked 7 hells out of each other. But at the end of the day, there can only be 1 victor. The final score of the game was 60 points to the Tyranids And a respectable, but not an absolute smashing, 77 points to the guard. Looking at the score here, what was one of the big deciding factors was when I took the linchpin off Craig. It's really stopped him from being able to score primary, because he came in with one of his lictors turn 3, but he couldn't get it onto the objectives. We couldn't re-establish his linchpin until basically turn 5, which was a bit of a pisser. And then also, one of the big issues he was having is his secondary game was just struggling. Because it was all big monsters, he didn't really have much in the way of like action monkeys. And once the Hormogaunts were down and his Biovore died, and I'd been doing, you know, I'd killed a Lictor as well. There really wasn't, and then his units were tied up by like Chimeras and stuff, so if they fell back, they couldn't do actions. It really was just a case of both sides did very equal damage to each other, but I was able to get a little bit more primary and a lot more secondary. Oh, one quick correction from something I said earlier. I said I had 2 infantry squads left at the end of the game. I had 1. This Chimera had dumped its infantry squad out, so when it died on turn 5, all it did is just basically move block the Tyranids. But I thought I'd mention it. So my final casualties were actually 80% casualties on the infantry front, 100% casualties from my Chimeras, and I took 40% casualties on my Leman Russ fleet. What were the main lessons learned from that game? Tyranids with big bugs are really strong. That was the first game, the entire event, when I felt like I was being outmatched on damage output. Like going through game 1, it was fairly equals-pequals. Game 2, I clearly had the advantage. Game 3, I had more damage output, but my opponent had, in theory, more durability, but I was able to overwhelm it. Game 4, fairly equals-pequals. There was that big smasher turn from like Lilith and all that. But game 5, it was like I was really struggling to kill anything, and I was consistently taking damage. It wasn't until I had that big turn 4, that big turn 5, when I was able to claw it back. But for the first 3 turns, I was genuinely being outshot and outdamaged by the Nids, it felt like. It was a terribly uncomfortable feeling. I don't mind an equal fight, but I don't like it when someone outshoots the guard. And so, with the final dice rolled, with the dust finally settled, we come to the end of the event. And over the course of 2 days and 5 games, I had gone undefeated. Under the WTC scoring, I had got 4 wins and a draw. Under raw GW points, it would have been 5 wins. In fact, if you look at the placings based on individual players, then officially I came 5th out of 72. However, and I'm not trying to wank myself off here, I do think it's important to note that the way that individual player placings work in Team Tournaments is a bit weird. The way BCP does it is a bit weird. 2 people that actually came higher than me, the person that placed 2nd and the person that placed 3rd, actually had a loss. And the person that came 4th had actually won all 5 games. It's because it just comes down to raw, like WTC points. But if we take into account that normally in a singles event, the losses wouldn't allow you to get in onto the podium. You know, someone with a loss can't score higher than someone with 5 wins. If we take that into account, then there were 2 players that had 5 wins, and then I was the highest scoring player who had 4 wins and a draw. So if this had been a singles event, I actually would have got onto the podium with this army. But before my ego gets too big, I do think that there were a few factors that need to be taken into account. The first one, and most importantly, is it was a team tournament. So the pairings helped a lot. I didn't play into Custodes once, which is traditionally the kryptonite of this army. And I didn't play into World Eaters or any other sort of high speed, high pressure army, which is melee focused, which could have tied me up a lot. I often felt like I was the one tying the enemy up and move blocking them, when if I face certain armies, it's the exact opposite. That's what happens to me. I also think that there are certain fundamental strengths of running an army like this traditional Mech Guard one. It's just a lot of vehicles. It's 5 tanks and 5 chimeras, and the advantage that the chimera has over the Taurox is that it is a light tank. The Taurox is just a delivery system. It never does any damage. It delivers things that do damage, but typically once it's done that, it dies, and the thing it delivered normally dies as well. But with this, the chimeras are a consistent threat, a persistent asset in my army, and something I can constantly draw upon. It's not just zooming forward and dying, it's zooming forward, it's doing a bit of screening, it's got a bit of durability, it can take that punch, it can do that damage between the lethal hits and the heavy bolters and the hunter killer missile. I really do think the chimeras were an unbelievably strong element of this list. And finally, it's worth pointing out that this is a list I have a lot of reps with. I've basically been playing this army list with only a few minor tweaks, like sometimes it's 4 Russes and 6 chimeras, sometimes it's 5 Russes and 5 chimeras. Ooh, the big change. It's always essentially that core of sort of 10 vehicles and then 2 artillery pieces, and I've been running that for nearly 2 years. I've been running it fairly consistently throughout 10th edition, and in fact, I've been running that Mech army since 8th edition with nearly no changes. It's always a core of chimeras, a core of Leman Russes, a couple of secondary units, and then some artillery. And so not only do I have a lot of reps with this in 10th edition, I have a lot of historical reps with it as well. And so I can really just operate on gut instinct when doing it. I don't have to do a lot of thinking. I know how much damage a chimera can take. I know how much damage a vehicle can do. And I think having that just intuitive knowledge of that list allows me to make very efficient actions. I know it sounds like I'm wanking myself now, but I don't mean it that way. The lesson I would take from that ramble is it's always better to go with a list that you are familiar with than a list that you haven't had much practice with. Even if the list, so many new players make this mistake. They'll have a list they're familiar with, and then like the day before list submission, they'll have like a mad moment and they'll write a brand new list which they think is better, but it's untested, and then they'll submit that one. And then they have to spend the first game or 2 of the tournament actually learning the list, and it puts them at a big disadvantage. If you're going to a tournament, it's always better to have a blade that you know rather than something shiny and new. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you now mech pilled? Are you ready to hashtag mech up? Are you ready to hashtag trad mech? Or do you have another way that you think the guard can do well? If you do, let me know down in the comment section, and if I like it, I might pick it up and run it at the next event. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. It really helps with boosting this content with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see more tournament reports, then let me tell you, I am back on them. I've been to another tournament and I've got another 2 lined up. Make sure you subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.